Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Guruvani Vacharya, Nirvasa Sunyavadi Prasmachandi Shitana. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutam Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavascha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Samadhanavaram Vikam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvajutam Varijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Rama Krishna Padam Sadhanam Vitashri Vishakam Tamsha Vanchikam Vishakam Vishakam So it is September 21st, the equinox. It's also my daughter's birthday. 2025. And we're looking at one of the processes of devotion, which is second, being friends with the Lord. How to have the Lord as our friend. Do you have to be there so then you can't be here? You can see? Yeah. Okay. Can everybody see properly? Great. So our first question is why? Why do we want to be friends with the Lord? So the Ishapanishad in Mantra 13 purport, Srila Prabhupada says that only the Lord's devotee and friend can understand Bhagavad Gita. And Prabhupada in a lecture in 1975 said if we want peace, then we can understand that here is my friend, the supreme friend. So if we want real knowledge, if we want real peace, then it's necessary to understand that the Lord, that Krishna is my friend, and that I am Krishna's friend. So this particular process of devotion, friendship, exists as a practice. Sadhana means practice, something we can practice, something we can do. You could say a kind of discipline, although I don't particularly like to use that word, but some say, I'm going to make an effort, I'm going to make an intentional effort to practice being the Lord's friend. And it also is the perfectional stage, or the rasa, for some enlightened beings. There are some fully realized, fully enlightened beings who are not engaging in friendship as a sadhana or a practice to become enlightened, but rather are exhibiting friendship with the Lord in state. Now, anybody, what their ultimate enlightened state, can practice friendship as a practice to become enlightened. And some of us will have the rasa of friendship as an enlightened being. Is that pretty clear? You can understand the difference a little bit? Okay. So we're going to look first at friendship as a sadhana, friendship as a spiritual practice. You know, when we talk about doing sadhana, doing a spiritual practice, I think a lot of us think about something like meditating, or chanting, or worshiping, right? We'll say, are you doing your sadhana? Or I have to do my sadhana, and we mean I'm sitting with my knees and chanting, or I'm meditating, or I'm listening to the scriptures. And those are processes of sadhana, but interestingly enough, friendship is also a process of sadhana. Is that cool? Yes? When you say, I'm doing my sadhana, you can also be doing this. So this has two divisions, Vishvasa and Mitra. We're going to look at each of those. Okay, the first division is or this much. So this process is actually quite related to another process of sadhana, and that is surrender. And this process is something that you will find quite commonly in most of the religions of the world. Thinking that Krishna is my friend, that the Lord is my friend. So what do we mean about if we say someone is my friend? We all have friends, I hope, yes? Hope everybody has this one friend. And if you say, so-and-so is my friend, so-and-so is a friend to me, that means they're a benefactor. They think of my benefit. They care about my benefit. They care if I'm happy or not, if I have what I need, they're going to be there for me. To see that the Lord is a benefactor. Now, as a little technical point, in Sanskrit the word shraddha or faith and vishvasa are synonyms, but they have different shades of meaning. So we're looking here at vishvasa as a practice, a process, and as a result. As a sadhana, we're looking at it as a process. So by practicing vishvasa, we develop shraddha. And it is also a word that can indicate not shraddha. Like people who say, do you have faith in God? Do you believe in God? And synonymously they'll say, do you have faith in God? Now generally when people say that, they mean, do you have faith that God exists? Do you believe? Do you have a conviction that there's some sort of divine being or force or potency beyond our experience in the world, correct? And the vast majority of people on the planet have faith that something, someone, there's some kind of divinity, there's some kind of spirituality, there's some source to this world beyond ourselves. It's actually very, very, very few who say, no, this world is everything and it just happened, we don't know how to know. It has no cause, it has no source, it has no foundation, it has no ground. So there's very, very few people like that. There are a large number of people who say, well, I just don't know. I really don't know, I can't come up with any decision. But most people have this kind of faith. However, there's degrees of faith. Saying, I have faith that divinity, some kind of divinity exists, is a lower level of faith than I have faith that the divinity that exists is beneficent. Now this kind of faith is a little more difficult because we see in this world that there is suffering. I'm assuming all of us have experienced some suffering in our life. You know, I flew here today and there was a baby in the aisle behind me that as soon as we started descending, you know, it pressured your ears when the plane descends. The baby was crying and crying and crying. So even when we're a few months old, we've experienced some sort of distress. I say it's impossible to be in the world for very long without some distress. And we see that a lot of suffering and difficulty appears to come to people who don't deserve it. You know, at pretty much at any time in recorded human history, there's been warfare going on somewhere. Not quite sure how many wars are going on right now. Obviously, you all know about Ukraine and Israel, but there's also a war going on in Sudan and Yemen. Recently, there was some clash between Cambodia and Thailand. And I'm sure there's other things going on that people in the news don't think is very important. So they just don't talk to us about it. So in those sort of skirmishes or wars, people that are faultless are getting hurt, correct? Right? warfare. They don't fight it on battlefields between the armies, but they bomb cities. They're bombing people who have nothing to do with politics and war. And so they're also suffering. And then there's natural suffering, earthquakes and fires and cyclones and things like that. And then there's just the natural suffering of life. There's diseases and injuries and so many things. So we could say that if there is a divinity, is that divinity actually beneficent? Is that divinity a benefactor? And so people often conclude, well, this divine being or consciousness, whatever it is, either must not be all powerful or else must not be all good. Because how can an all powerful, all good being allow apparently unjust suffering? So this faith that the divinity is both all-powerful and all-good, even though there's suffering, is the highest degree of faith. Now, of course, we followers of the Vedas explain the existence of apparently unjust suffering. How? What's our explanation? Anyone who follows the Eastern paths, what's the explanation? Karma and it's got to be unused. Can't just be karma. It's got to be karma and reincarnation. If you only had karma from this life, then again it wouldn't make sense. Why would a 2-year-old get cancer or be the victim in a bombing? So all the Eastern paths teach about karma and reincarnation. Of course, it's there in the Abrahamic religions, but it's not taught to people in general. So it's there in those traditions, but those people are not aware of it. So once one knows about karma and reincarnation, then one can see that everything is fair and that everything is beneficial. But really having the faith in that when difficult, painful things happen to me or those I care about, that there's still an all-powerful, beneficent divinity is the top level of faith. That I completely, totally, 100% trust that our source is my friend. That sounds easy as a philosophical idea, but it is not easy in life. It's not easy. When really serious suffering comes, it's not easy to say, this is good. This is ultimately good. It's for my good. It's coming from a place of absolute good. Therefore, we can say this visvasa, which is that Krishna is my friend, is the limit of faith. It is the result of absolute faith. However, this vishvasa is also a sadhana. It is also a spiritual process. It is a practice. It's a way of living intentionally, whereby we can come to that conviction, not just theoretically, but experientially, where we actually experience it. Now imagine what that would be. And Krishna tells us the result of this. He says one attains peace. This is Bhagavad Gita 5:29, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Suvinam Sarvadinam, Yadvinam Shanti. Sarvalokameshwara, Krishna says, I'm the big guy here. All the worlds. Mama Ishvara, I am the big controller. And Suvidam. Su means very or auspicious or sweet. Rid is your heart. So Suvid, very dear to every living entity, every one of us. Sarvabhutana, everyone who's alive, is very dear to my heart. So both all-powerful and all-loving. And once we know that, we get peace. And we won't experience the material to us externally. So many times people think, well, if I really have faith in the Lord and do some spiritual process, the material mysteries won't happen to me. I won't break my leg, I won't lose my money, nobody will cheat me, I won't get sick, whatever. And then when those things happen, then they lose their faith. They say, what's the use of being religious anymore? But when we have this faith, we do not experience the mysteries as mysteries. Because on an experiential level, we see that everything is good. Not just here, but we're actually experiencing that everything is good. Now, we all have some idea of this. I'm sure all of us have had a situation where something happened that we thought was bad and it ended up to be something good. Is that correct? Something happened, you thought, oh, this is terrible. This is awful. Why did this happen? And then you find out, oh my God, this was a good thing. I mean, a really just almost petty example was once when the people who were supposed to drive me to the airport were an hour late to come get me. And this was in my very, very early days of travel, when I traveled with a lot more luggage and used to check in the suitcase, which I don't believe. And we got to the airport 1 minute before they were going to close the check-in. And the whole way to the airport, I was feeling some anxiousness. I'm going to miss my flight, what am I going to do? Right? But I was in the car also thinking, Krishna, there must be something good to this. So we barely got that back on the plane. When I arrived at my destination, I was the only one who got my bag. When the bag came out on the thing, I just took it and left. Everybody was still waiting. And some months later, the airline gave me some miles. You're going to get like credit for miles. And I said, why are you giving me this? And they said, well, the luggage drawer was locked. We couldn't get it open. And no one got their luggage for 48 hours. We had to bring the plane back to get repaired. I said, well, I got my luggage. And what happened was, because my luggage was so late, they put it in a different place. And I said, well, you don't need to give me these miles. They said, we already gave it to you. Just keep it. So because I was so late, I got my bag. So that was a very petty thing, where something that seemed bad, it actually seemed bad, for 45 minutes on that drive. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do if I miss this plane? What am I going to do? They're expecting me there, they paid for my ticket, I don't have enough money to buy another ticket. What am I going to do? How am I going to explain this? How am I going to deal with it? And it ended up to be something favorable. So that's, again, a very petty thing. If I gave you more deeper examples, it would take too much time. But I'm sure you all have, again, some examples like this. You see that something you thought was bad is actually good. When we come to full faith, we see that everything is good, that everything is perfect, that everything is for our benefit, that everything is good, and therefore we don't experience misery as misery at all. One will not even experience physical pain as pain, but just simply as sensations. So that's total peace. So this faith with the Lord protects and provides. This part of friendship is also part of the sadhana of surrender. And it's very interesting in Bhagavad Gita 2:45, Krishna says, Niryoga Kshema Atmanaya. Don't worry about gain, which is yoga, or safety, shame. Atmaman, just hold the self. Just hold the Atman. Know that you are a soul. Why should you worry about gain and loss in this world? Be fixed in the fact that you are a spiritual being that doesn't have anything to do with the world. Then later in 9:22, Krishna says, Yoga Kshema Mahamyaham. I'm I'm taking care of all of your yoga, Krishna. I'm taking care of anything you need and protecting what you have. Now again, we might look at this and say, well, those who are serving the Lord seem to lose things sometimes. They may lose money, they may lose a loved one, they may lose a leg or something. Or they may fail to get something that they want. They may fail to get a spouse, they may fail to get a job, they may fail to get a child. But again, this is the faith that whatever happens to me is good. That actually I am getting everything I need. And that everything I need is being protected. That I don't necessarily have a clear idea of what I need and what is good for me. A loving parent sometimes takes toys away from a child. Not out of enmity with the child. A loving parent may say, look, I can see that this thing is distracting you from your studies, so let's put it away. Or I can see that if you eat this now, you're not going to eat your dinner. You're not going to have proper health, so let's take it away. And the child may think, oh, my parent doesn't love me. But actually it's for their benefit. Yes? So I'm thinking my 7-year-old great-grandson, when it was his 6th birthday, so I had given him 4 toys for his birthday. 2 of them were craft gifts, things that he could make and build, and 2 of them were just toys. So a week after his birthday, it was the birthday of one of his classmates. And for that child's birthday, the parents sponsored us going to a children's museum. It was a great place, it was a fantastic place. And we were all there for hours, and we had a birthday meal there and so forth. And by the time we were finished, it was getting late, and the kids were all tired. You know, it was a very exciting day. And my great-grandson went to the shop in the museum and said, Granny, that's what he calls me. He says, Granny, can you buy me this toy? It wasn't a very expensive toy. But the first thing I said to him was, hey, I'll remind you, a week ago I gave you 4 presents for your birthday. And 2 of them are things to do that you haven't even started yet. You may have to do with your parents. You know, maybe you could actually start to use those presents before I give you another one. Now, let's say that Abhimanyu had said to me, oh, that's true, Granddad, but I've never been to this museum before, and I may never come here again. And this is a very different toy than I've seen anyplace else. So even though I haven't played with all those toys yet, would you be willing to give me this other one? And maybe you could even wait, maybe you could get it for me and hold on to it until I finish, you know, using the other things and then give it to me. Would that be okay? Now, if he had said that, I actually would want it for him. I think it was like $2 or $3. It was a very minor thing. But that's not what he did. Do you have any idea what he did? He had a whole fit. He started yelling and screaming and crying about what a mean grandman I was. So did I buy him the toy? Did I buy him the toy? Did I buy him the toy? Definitely not. I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to reward this kind of behavior. So from his little 6-year-old point of view, I was not being a benefactor. I was being cruel. But I was trying to educate him in proper behavior and gratitude and human relationships, which I thought was a lot more important than a $2 piece of plastic. But he might not have appreciated that. And he might have thought, if you're not getting me what I need. So to have this conviction that I don't have to worry about protecting what I have and getting what I need. That doesn't mean we're responsible. But I don't have to worry about it. I can have the confidence that Krishna is my friend and that he is taking care of protecting what I have and giving me what I need. Again, that doesn't mean that you're responsible. Like I have this computer, I really try to take care of it. my sons, and we were at the beach, and he had his computer there. We're sitting on some chairs on the sand. And he said, Auntie, you would never bring your computer to the beach, would you? And I said, look, you've got 8 computers, I have 1. He said, if you get sand in this one, it's not a big deal. So we take care of our things, but not with the idea that I'm going to be the protector, and I'm going to be the maintainer, and I'm going to make sure. No, I do it as a service. Krishna's given me this stuff, and I should try to take care of it nicely in gratitude. There's a very, very famous song in the Old Testament of the Bible by King David about this confidence that the Lord will take care of him. And this is from the point of view of being a sheep. I'm a sheep. Actually, Rupa Goswami gives this kind of analogy where he says that we don't worry about our maintenance, just like if you sell an animal to someone, the new owner takes care of the animal. You don't worry about it anymore. So when we give ourselves to the Lord, He takes care of us, just like the shepherd will take care of the sheep. By the way, Bhaktivedanta writes a very similar song where he talks about being Krishna's cow. He says, I am with your herd of cows, and you will protect me from poisonous water and demons and so forth. So Srila Rupa Goswami describes that the kind of faith the devotee has is if I follow the path of bhakti, that I will become perfect. That this path that Krishna's given me will lead me to perfection. Now I want to emphasize as strongly as I can that this kind of faith does not mean that we're making a business deal with Krishna. We're not saying to Krishna, okay, I'm going to follow this rule and this rule and this rule, and you're going to give me enlightenment. Then I'm paying for it. As soon as we think like that, we miss the whole point. We've lost the whole idea of what we're doing. Enlightenment is not, and perfection is not something like that. It's not something we earn by paying for with a particular discipline. Perfection is about reestablishing the truth of who we are, the truth of our relationship with Krishna. And Krishna is telling us the path to achieve that. Very much like I have the faith that when I buy a ticket to a destination and I get on a plane that's going to take me there, I have no idea really, right? You know, I had on my screen that little flight map. You've seen that? Where your planes? But I don't know. I'm just trusting it. And I don't really know what I'm seeing out the window. Once in St. Petersburg, I was supposed to fly from St. Petersburg to Moscow. And all the announcements were only in Russian. Which I did not know. I know a few words like Karsho, Spasibo. But I had no idea what they were saying, okay? And all the signs were only in Russian. And it's a different alphabet. I couldn't even sound it out phonetically. And I know you're not going to believe this, but my boarding pass was handwritten, okay? It wasn't even printed by a computer. So I wasn't even sure if it said that I was going to Moscow. And I'm trying to find the gate, and they write their numbers differently, and I didn't have any idea where I was going. And I go to one of the staff there, and I showed them my boarding pass, and they said, wait. I thought they were saying, Kuwait. And I'm thinking, Kuwait, you're to Moscow. And I just kind of got on the plane. I figured, well, I guess they're not going to let me on the plane unless I got the right boarding pass. But it didn't have a barcode on it. It was just in. And along that plane, thinking, Krishna, I hope I'm going to Moscow. I don't know. I guess if I don't end up in Moscow, it's going to be a new adventure. But we have this faith. I get on the bus, I get on a train, I get on a plane, it says it's going to this place, that's where it's going to go. I'm not going to end up in another place. So we have some faith that Krishna says, if you want to attain perfection, if you want to revive your original existence, this is the way to do it. And we believe him that he's giving us the right instruction. Again, that's different than thinking it's some kind of a deal we're making. Can you understand the distinction? So an example is given of Draupadi, which he says, "Oh Govinda, remembering again and again your promise that your devotee will never perish, I maintain my life." And of course, Draupadi's situation was quite interesting because she went through a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of bad stuff. Right? Hare Krishna. But it wasn't just that she was insulted in the gambling match. That wasn't the end of the thing. Jayadratha tried to kidnap her. She had to live in exile. Kicha tried to molest her. Her children were all murdered. She had difficulties. But we have this faith. Krishna's always there for me. He's my friend. He cares about me. So the point that Srila Swami makes, he says the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead owns life and soul. That one will not give up the shelter even for a single moment. This is this Vishwasa. Even if one can get rulership of the entire universe or become a celestial being. So the concept that Krishna is my friend, however he wants to take care of me is beneficial, it's loving. And I'm not going to give that up, even for some gorgeous arrangement, even for the greatest power. He's my friend. You know, in this world, people make friendships, but they'll sometimes betray their friends for power or money or status, correct? It happens. But Vishwasa is, I'm loyal to my friend Krishna. I'm with him. However he wants to take care of me, I'm sticking with him. I'm not going to go with him. So if we're going to summarize Vishwasa, the Lord is my benefactor and friend, my only shelter. From him only I get maintenance and protection. I take solace in his promise of protection in all difficulties, and I will not give up a shelter for any material objects. So this is a practice. Again, we can say this is the ultimate perfection of faith. If you have full, absolute faith, this is how it manifests. And we can say this is something you can practice. It's something we can practice. Having this mentality, meditating on having this mentality in our life, and seeing how having this mentality brings us peace, brings us freedom, brings us detachment, allows us to see that we are just the observer of this body and mind and senses. The second division of the practice of friendship is called mitra. This goes in the other direction. Vishwasa is, Krishna is my friend. Mitra is, I am Krishna's friend. I am Krishna's friend. his well-wisher. How do we become Krishna's friend? I mean, one could say that the very definition of friendship is a sense of equality. And certainly in the realm of rasa, we have that. But even here as a practice, to have a sense that I can do something good for the Lord. If someone wants to say, well, the Lord is just great and I'm small and we're just different, how can I be his benefactor? He can only be my benefactor. But no, there's a sense that I can also be his benefactor. So how can we do that? So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, anyone who preaches this knowledge is very dear to me. And Prabhupada quotes this statement of Krishna in regard to discussing friendship. That being Krishna's friend means that I am helping other people to become enlightened. I am helping other people to connect with Krishna. I am helping other people to find peace. I'm not just taking this and running off and enjoying it myself. Right? Sometimes we do that. Sometimes there's some food preparation we really like, and we just take it and run off in the corner and want to eat it ourselves and not share it. Actually, recently when I was in London, someone gave me some prasad, and among there was something I really liked, and there was only one of them. And I was with a very dear friend, and I said, is it all right if I just eat this one myself? And I thought, that really would be very nice. That's not very nice. I said, here, you can have half. So Krishna's giving us peace. He's giving us enlightenment. He's giving us knowledge. Just like someone gave me that plate of prasad. They weren't watching what I did with it, but I'm sure they were be happy if I shared. So Krishna's happy if we share. And when we do that, we are acting as his friend. Now, a very nice statement about friendship is clouds. So the clouds, megha means clouds, suridam. Remember the suridam from the Bhagavad Gita? Surid, very dear to the heart. So the clouds, megha suridam, they are very dear friends of Krishna. So why are they friends of Krishna? So first of all, because they have the same color. We tend to have affinity for people who are like us, correct? We just do. So I was also on a plane yesterday. And on the plane yesterday, I was going from Sola to Moscow. There was a husband and wife there, and I could tell by the way they were speaking that they were Americans, not only their English, but their accent. And as we got off the plane, the wife asked me about my backpack. She said, oh, that's a nice backpack. And I said, unfortunately, they don't make it anymore. And we got into a conversation. And as we were walking out of the airport, and she said to me, are you American? I said, isn't it obvious? And she said, well, I suppose you would be Canadian. But when you meet someone who's like yourself, immediately there's some affinity. I've never met these people before. But we're talking like friends. As we're walking through the airport, we're mostly talking about luggage. But we were talking as if we knew each other. I had a similar experience in China in 2007. In China, nobody spoke English that I went into. Like, nobody, they didn't even know to say hello. Like, not a word. And I didn't know a word of Mandarin. Still don't know how to say hello in Mandarin. Absolutely nothing. And I had a translator, but only my translator knew both languages. And it was very isolating. I was there for 10 days. It's kind of hard to be with people where neither person's know the language, and the languages are so dissimilar. Like a year ago, I was in Brazil with a family that didn't know any English at all. But Portuguese, also being a Latin language, it has some similarities with English. There's some words that we can make out. And of course, then Google Translate told me. In China, there wasn't Google Translate that back in 2007. And the language was so dissimilar that Nothing. Nothing. We could use gestures and pictures and things like that. So I had a lovely time there, but it was definitely frustrating and isolating to some extent. So at the airport, I was standing in a line, I was standing in a queue, and I heard some people again speak English with an American accent. And not only an American accent, a Northeastern American accent. I was like, whoa, my people! Prabhupada talks about that. Prabhupada talked about how when he first came to America, there were hardly any Indians in America at that time. The government had a very strict quota on how many Indians could enter the country, and they had just relaxed that in 1965. When Prabhupada came, there was not one Hindu temple in the United States. There was not one Indian shop. And it was hard to buy something like basmati rice at that time, Indian spices. And Prabhupada would talk about it, he said, when I would meet someone from India, immediately you feel a connection. Oh, where are you from? And he said, especially if they're like from Kolkata. And wow. So this is natural, to have this kind of connection. So Krishna feels some connection with the dark rain clouds because of his color. But that's not the only reason that the clouds are his friend. They're also Krishna's friend because they give people relief. As Prabhupada writes in Krishna book, chapter 35. Krishna is accepted as the friend of the cloud because both the cloud and Krishna satisfy the people when they are disturbed. When the people are burning due to excessive heat, the cloud satisfies them with rain. Similarly, when people in materialistic life become disturbed by the blazing fire of material pangs, Krishna consciousness gives them relief like the cloud. When I was in Salaha, it was really interesting. We're flying, and the sky is clear, 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 clear. We get to Salaha, clouds, 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 clouds. And the people there told me, oh, people like to come here when it's raining to get relief from the heat. It's a big tourist attraction for the GCC. People like to come here. So the clouds give people relief and produce greenery. And similarly, Krishna gives people relief from material identification. And this material world is compared to a forest fire. And it takes place by itself. And it's very difficult for the fire department to put out a forest fire. But the forest fire, it can be put out by rain. So in the same way, our illusion of material entanglement, deviation, mama, maya, dharajaya, it's difficult, very difficult to get out of illusion by our own effort. It's very easy if we surrender to Krishna. So the clouds are also Krishna's friend because they give relief to people. So we should become like that. To be Krishna's friend, we want to be a cloud of mercy. We want to be compassionate and merciful to others. Not just distributing this knowledge in a sectarian, arrogant way. There's enough religious people like that in the world already. We don't need to be one of them. But actually to care about people. To care about whether or not they achieve the ultimate reality of life. Now the cloud is also a friend of Krishna in a very personal way.
But not consciousness is superior friend. The cloud, instead of pouring water, begins to pour. The small witness of cloud and snow and offers the aid of Krishna just as umbrella to protect it from the passing sunshine.
So not only do we want to act as Krishna's agent to give mercy to the world, but we want to do personal service for Krishna. So we have a little meditation here on this from the Gita Govinda.
Sajala jalada samhaya ruchirena daladina sa hrudi vilahavadena saki yaramita vanamalina.
So Krishna is attractive like a rising cloud full of water. This indicates the Lord's ever-fresh his attractiveness, his ability to destroy pain, his affection, his ability to cause increase, and his nature of being full of pleasure or rasa. So sometimes it's said that if one wants to be Krishna's friend, one may live in a temple to be very close to Krishna, and may even lie down in the Lord's temple. But such behavior would be in spontaneous practice rather than in regulated practice. But this concept that I can do things for Krishna, I can be his friend. So the summary of Mitra is I am the well-wisher of the Lord. Like him, I want to help others. I want to relieve their distress. I especially show my friendship with the Lord by teaching others of his glories and the secret of surrender. I also want to relieve the Lord personally of any inconvenience out of friendship, and out of friendship I may see the Lord in intimacy with a mood of informality. Okay, so that completes the section on friendship as a practice. We're going to look briefly, there's a large section of this in the Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So we're just looking very, very briefly at friendship as an enlightened, perfected state for some beings. So each of us in our ultimate enlightened state has a very particular relationship with Krishna eternally. That relationship has no beginning and no end. Right now it is covered. And for some living beings, that relationship is of friendship. So Rupa Goswami says, this is in the section of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada about friendship. I offer my respect to the friends of Krishna who serve him with deep trust, without restriction, without fear, by thinking that he is an equal. In Srila Prabhupada's purport to Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 19:183 to 184, he says, according to the opinion of advanced devotees and learned scholars, a person in Sakyarati, or this loving friendship, feels equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is a relationship of friendship. Due to having a friendly relationship with the Lord, not only is one free of material attachment, but one believes in equal dealings with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is called Sakyarati. Rati means love. The Sakyarati devotee is so advanced that he treats the Lord on an equal level and often exchanges joking words with him. Although one is never equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Sakyarati devotee feels equal to the Lord, and he does not feel guilty because of this. Usually it is offensive to consider oneself equal to the Lord. The Mayavadis, for example, consider themselves equal to the Lord, but such feelings entail bereavement because they are material. Sakyarati, however, is a feeling experienced by a pure devotee and eternally related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in that feeling. So there are two main types of friends in eternal enlightenment, those in the city and those in Vraja. So in the city, the examples given by Srila Goswami are the Pandavas, Arjuna being the same Draupadi as Sudama Brahmana. So the Pandavas include Draupadi and Sudama Brahmana. I find it fascinating, although I've never read anything that's explanatory, about the fact that Draupadi is also in this friendship. Usually when we think about Krishna's friends, we think about other, like Kauravas. But obviously there are some eternal females who are also Krishna's friends. So the only one mentioned is Draupadi, but I think it's a reasonable assumption that there are many others. Because Srila Goswami, for each of these relationships, generally just gives one or two examples. So the Pandavas, Draupadi, Sudama Brahmana, they have the sense of equality with the Lord. And as Krishna says to Arjuna, here's one example of Arjuna's friendship, that Ashwatthama was throwing arrows at Krishna, but Arjuna immediately stood in front of Krishna to intercept these arrows. And even though the arrows were hitting Arjuna, because he was in so much friendship love for Krishna, they fell to him just like flowers. So again, this example that one who's in this mood of friendship doesn't feel pain as pain. Even physical pain does not feel it as pain. So in the country friends, so Srila Rupa Goswami says that some of Krishna's country friends are a little older, some are a little younger, and some are the same age. And there's all different categories of these friends. So well-wisher friends, these are a little older, Mandali Bhadra, Balabhadra, Devaprastha, confidential friends like Sridhama and Sudama, and intimate friends like Subal and Ujjvala.
Krishna and Balaram went to the pasturing ground. Tending the calves, these mandas danced with their ankle bells, making a tinkling sound. Sometimes they imitated bulls and cows by covering themselves with blankets. They imitated sounds of animals and birds, enjoying their childhood pastimes of parenting ordinary children.
So Krishna also has this sense of friendship. And in Nectar Devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami quotes how Krishna is feeling this friendship for his friends. That Krishna says to Balaram, when my companions are being devoured by the Aghasura, hot tears poured down from my eyes. And as they were washing my cheeks, my dear older brother, for at least one moment I completely lost myself. So sometimes the devotees in the ecstasy of oneness, they lose themselves. Like the gopis when Krishna leaves the rasa dance, they lose all sense of identity. They feel I'm Krishna. And when Krishna is loving his friends, he loses his sense of identity and has this sense of oneness. How do Krishna's friends feel about him? So when Krishna's lifting Govardhan Hill, they say you've spent 7 nights standing constantly without sleep, holding up Govardhan. You must be very tired. Oh, my friend Krishna, throw the mountain onto Sridhama's hands. Because they're having this sense of equality. Our minds are very disturbed seeing you in this condition. Or at least place the mountain in your right hand, then we'll be able to massage your left hand. So here's some of the stimulants for friendship. The Lord himself is the stimulant for this love of friendship. His other friends, his age, his beauty, his bugle, his flute, his concho, and his pleasing attitude. So we looked at friendship as a sadhana. This applies to all of us. In Vishvasa, that the Lord is my friend, the Lord is my benefactor. As Mitra, that I am the Lord's friend. I am trying to make him comfortable. I am trying to spread his message. And then for some enlightened beings, their eternal beginningless, endless relationship with Krishna is in the sense of equality and friendship. And there are different kinds of friends in the city, like Draupadi's, Ramana, the Pandavas, in Vraja, older, who are mixed with parental affection, younger, mixed with servitude, and the same age, confidential and intimate. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, who teaches us this intimate understanding of how we can relate to the Lord. So does anyone have questions, comments? We can turn lights back on. And turn the projector off. We usually have to get the power button twice. Anyone questions, comments, additions, subtractions, corrections, chastisements?
Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Yes.
It was a wonderful session, especially the Mitra part was very nice. We never thought in that angle, like what can we do to Krishna? That was very nice, Mataji. Thank you so much for that. A person, while suffering, you console him or her, saying that it's okay, it's for the good, everything happens for the good. But then that doesn't hit them. So how do you...
If someone is in the middle of suffering, they are not usually receptive to anything philosophical. And that's a biological situation, that our brain is engineered, that if our brain perceives that we're in danger, it gets this narrow focus on getting rid of the danger and is not able to consider anything else, which is very useful if you're being chased down an alley by some dogs. You know, that's not when you want to be considering philosophy, you just want to figure out how to get away from the dogs. So when someone is in the midst of great suffering, philosophy is not effective. It just isn't. If a person is fully seated not only intellectually in this philosophy, but also experientially, if in the normal ups and downs of life, they are experiencing that everything is beneficial, then that experience of theirs will carry them through even very great suffering. Now what will happen is they may have to let their body and mind go through the suffering, but they won't identify with it, and they won't feel it as suffering. But just trying to do it at the last minute will be very difficult. I'm just thinking, before I knew the name doula, I was a doula, which is a woman who helps with childbirth. And I would train women how to go through labor and birth without pain by adjusting the mind. So if I could train them during the pregnancy and they actually practice, then it worked very well. If they didn't practice and I just tried to go in when they were in labor, it generally didn't work as well. I could help them, but not usually as much. So when people are really suffering, if they don't have some grounding, not only theory, but experience, then usually all you can do is just be there. I'm with you. It's okay, I'm with you. I'm here. I'm with you. And just that's it. It's usually, that's usually the most that you can do if a person's going through something tense, difficult. Later, when things are not as intense, you can look at things differently. But better to have to start working on this as a sadhana in normal life. To practice this, again, not just in theory, not just, I know this philosophically. That's better than nothing, but not a whole lot. but you actually work on feeling it. Is that right? Anybody else?
So much for giving us this of relating Krishna as a friend. I was thinking in the, I would say, for the youth, if I ask this question, because youth is the time in which we become swayed by different probably temporary influences. So, is there some practical thinking for the youth in which when they have some kind of a allurement, they can go against and have that faith steady on Krishna rather than this temporary.
Well, what happens is when we're children, we generally accept what our parents and superiors tell us as truth. And then we have to figure things out, and we hit maturity. We start to mature, age 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And then we have to decide, what do I believe? What do I want to do? And every human being has to go through this. We have to decide what's mine. In some cases, that means we're going to decide something different from our parents. I did. Not entirely. I kept probably 80% of what my parents told me. But we have to find our own self. Now, some of that is going to, if you're fortunate enough to have good parents and good elders and a good community, then the view of reality that you got as a child will be one that you want to take up as an adult. If it's a sane and stable and balanced and intelligent view of reality. It's also in modern society, you are going to be exposed to just about everything. Which was not true when I was young. There's all kinds of things that everybody knows about today that I didn't know about until I was in my 30s or 40s. Because you just didn't have access to information like that. Whereas now all of you have this little box in your pocket that can let you know everything about everything, about everything, about everything. And so you're going to know about every possible point of view and every possible way of living. Which I think, on the one hand, is kind of a bad thing, because it's so overwhelming. I actually feel sorry for young people today, having to make decisions about all kinds of things regarding their identity that when I was growing up, nobody even thought about. On the other hand, there is a benefit, of course, that you are exposed to a lot of things in the world that you can learn about. It's very easy to get knowledge. So how can you prevent yourself from being swayed to the wrong place? I mean, the other interesting thing about, when you're like 12 to, I think the research is 25, your brain is still developing. And until you're 25, the rational decision-making parts of your brain are not fully developed. And males take longer than females for this reason. Statistically, males also are much more likely to engage in stupid or silly behavior. And if you don't believe me, ask the insurance companies. So we do have some danger in you that I'm ready to be my own person, but I'm not as smart as I'm going to be. I'm still immature, and I think another really wonderful and horrible, simultaneously wonderful and horrible thing about being young is you don't believe you're ever going to be old like Orville is now. You just don't believe it. You think people like me are a different species. I mean, I remember very clearly getting a driver's license and I couldn't put down that my hair was brown. I was there with one of my kids and I said, is my hair brown or gray? And they said, it's gray. And I felt like something had happened to my identity. You know, my whole life, hair brown, eyes blue. And all of a sudden I couldn't put hair brown anymore. Like, who am I? What happened to me? And I distinctly remember the day when I realized that I couldn't do, multiple week marathons anymore. I don't mean running marathons, but I couldn't go with hardly any sleep for weeks at a time and still function, that my body just couldn't do it anymore. And it was such a shock. Like, I knew that people get old and I knew that my body would get old, but I didn't really believe that that would happen and that I would have to live with it. So one thing when you're young is you feel that you're invulnerable. The incredible energy that you have, and capacity and resilience that you have when you're young. You just take it for granted. You just think, that's what I have. And so sometimes spirituality kind of goes to the background. You think, I'm just going to be this vibrant, energetic, beautiful being forever. And why should I worry about spiritual topics? And why should I worry about death? And why should I worry about ultimate meaning in life? And then the senses in the mind are screaming at you. And how gross that should be. But anyway, they're screaming at you. And it's very strong. So a lot of this depends on who you make. We're talking about friendship with Krishna. Who you make as your friends. Be careful who you make friends with. If you have some ideals, what kind of a person I want to be, choose other people who are going to help you be that kind of a person. So what was my ultimate deciding factor to move into a Hare Krishna ashram? Because in the 1970s, joining the Hare Krishna movement meant you left everything and you moved into an ashram. That was it. That was the only way to become a Hare Krishna devotee in those days. As I was at university, and I went to university when I was 17, and on my 18th birthday, two of the girls in my dormitory said, oh, now that you're 18, you have to see an R-rated movie. And I said, well, now I'm practicing Krishna Consciousness, I'm not even going to the movies. They said, no, you have to do this, you're 18. And so I thought they were really nice girls. And I'm like, okay, well, they're not going to do anything crazy. And they took me to these, they were terrible movies also. They were just like really bad acting and really bad scripts. They were just awful movies. I still remember the one movie. And they were just awful. They were just awful. They're all about, like, one was about really gross sexual things, and the other was about really gross violent things. And after I left the theater with them, I'm like, I gotta go be with devotees. I gotta be friends with devotees of Krishna. I can't be friends with materialistic people. If I'm close friends with materialistic people, they're gonna convince me to do things that I don't even want to do. And then I'm gonna say, why did I do this? That was my ultimate deciding factor. I thought I need to be with people that are going to support my spiritual life. I can't expose myself on an intimate, regular basis with people that are going to push me to do things that are against what I want to achieve. I mean, the same thing is there materially. If you want to be a medical doctor, hang out with medical doctors. Hang out with students that are going to be serious. Right? And when I was getting my PhD, I got this book, How to Finish Your Thesis or Dissertation in 2 or 3 semesters, which I did in 3 semesters. And one of the pieces of advice they gave, which I really credit with the fact that I was able to get it done in that amount of time, was they said, get some accountability buddies. So I put a notice up in the university, anyone who's working on their doctoral dissertation, who wants to meet, whatever it was, every Friday, 4 o'clock, I forget, it was once a week, we met on campus, and they were from all different disciplines. So we didn't even understand what each other was doing. You know? But you show up with your laptop, what did you do this week? And everybody, this is what I was doing, well, this is what I was doing. And you didn't want to go to that weekly meeting and not have done anything. So it was just so helpful to have other people who had similar goals. Because no one else in my life cared. You know, if I tried to talk to my family about my dissertation, the first week or two they were interested, and after that they were like, you know, okay, so I want to use the T-score to analyze the statistics of these people. And they're like, So even materially, whatever you want to achieve, it's good to be with people who will encourage you and not discourage you. And yes, it is hard because you're trying to figure out what do I want to achieve. You're trying to figure out what kind of person do I want to be. What do I want? What do I feel is really important? Please choose wisely. We do have a tendency as social beings to try to please the people around us that we like. So that's really the main thing is association. And I would say another main thing, if you value spirituality, is to keep up with hearing, to regularly read the scriptures, to regularly hear from spiritual people, to remember, oh yeah, I am the soul. Attaining spiritual perfection is attainable and desirable. To be reminded. Is that all right?
Any other questions?
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for such a nice session. Now, sometimes grown-up children, when we ask what you would like to become, they are unable to tell anything. They say, I'm waiting for my result, or something. So, what age they should start thinking about their goal and their
Well, you know, I wrote this book, Career Dharma, with my co-author, Dr. Ruchira Datta. It's a big book. And we teach career, we teach about it, we have sessions. Did I teach that here? I haven't taught that here. Oh my.
Yes.
Did I teach that here, Pastor?
Yes. Yeah.
Small presentation. And one of the things that we're starting to do in the world is we're training people how to be career dharma coaches so that they can help people find what is it that they should do for a livelihood according to Shastra. So what I have to say now, I don't think you're going to like very much. I hope you will invite me back to those things. So, what is dharma? What is our Sanatana Dharma? Can anyone tell me? Our eternal dharma. Das, to serve. The Prabhupada says our essential dharma, that which cannot be disconnected from ourselves, is to serve. Everybody is serving. Spiritually, that's when we're serving Krishna. But we're always serving. So we have basically three dharmas we have in material life. Our Sanatana Dharma, our Varna Dharma, and our Ashram Dharma. All of those are in the context of service. Nowadays, many young people are taught to look for a career not in terms of service, but in terms of what it will do for them. what's going to be fun for you, what's going to make a lot of money for you, it's all about you, it's all about you. No, it's not. Varna Dharma is about how you're inspired to serve. If you just ask somebody what you would like, you're probably going to get a hobby. I like to play soccer. Do you want to play soccer for the good of the world? If you ask them what they're good at, you may get something circumstantial. What we really want to ask is how do you want to serve? Now, in order for someone to answer that question, generally, they have to have experience in service. If you go to someone and say, because there's 4 varnas, if you go to someone and say, would you like to serve in this way or this way or this way or this way, and that person has never done any paid or volunteer work, all they've done is study and play. They've never done anything that was outward facing, that was service facing. It's very difficult for them to answer that question. It's like if I say, what kind of fruit would you like if you've never had any fruit before? It will be extremely difficult to answer that question. In pre-industrial societies, children started doing service very young. Krishna and Balaram were taking care of the cows before they were 6. The concept that people were just studying, and just studying being self-centered. I'm studying so I can make money in the future. I'm studying so I can fulfill my desires in the future, is a very recent and strange phenomenon. That was the result of industrialization. Industrialization perverted people's work. Instead of people working with the cows outside, or with crafts, or in something that was natural and healthy, work went into factories. And children started working in factories. I'm sure you all know this in history. And so laws were passed to prevent children from working. Now, by the way, those laws were not passed just to protect children, which is probably what they told you in school. Those laws were also passed because the children were unfair competition with the adults. So the children were doing the same work as the adults, but being paid 1/4 the price. And therefore, there were laws passed to protect the adult workers by forbidding the children from working. And so now there's child labor laws in almost every country in the world. Which is a good thing, to keep you from working in factories where you're unhealthy and you get your fingers cut off and things like that. But it's a bad thing in that it removed meaningful service from the lives of children. And it's not so bad that parents don't even think that they need to give their children any meaningful service. I have met many people who told me, oh, my father told me, I don't even need to learn how to cook. All I need to do is study. And I'm thinking, so when you grow up, you're not going to eat? I met a 29-year-old woman who said, I don't know how to cook. And I said, well, I'm sure you know how to cook something. Do you know how to cook rice? No. Pasta? No. Porridge? No. I said, you're right, you know. How are you going to eat? I went into a grocery store once, asked a young woman who worked there, where are the spices? And she looked at me the way. I said, there are the spices. She took me to the aisle where there was ketchup and mustard. And I said, I guess you don't cook, do you? She said, no. People aren't even training their children in living necessities. No service, no chores to the family. Just get good marks and in your spare time play. And it's all means. We should start training our children in meaningful service when they're 4. Absolutely by age 14. The research shows that a person's dormant is evident at 13. But again, my experience with coaching people is if I'm coaching young people who have zero volunteer or paid work experience, they have no idea. I'm working with nothing. All they can think about is what games do I like to play, and maybe what do I like to study in school, which doesn't really give a good indicator. I mean, another thing, if you want to develop spirituality, is do some practical work for the mission of which you attend. It's also how you can be Krishna's friend. Try different things in the mission. See what you like. What moves you? What is it that you're feeling? I want to give this to the world for Krishna's pleasure. What is it you want to give to the world? And it's awfully nice to know that before you go to university. So you don't waste your time getting a degree in the wrong thing. I can't tell you how many people I've had consultations with who have degrees in computer science, and that's not what they want to do. If you want to be a diplomat, you should be studying political science, not computer science. Understand? Does that make sense? One should be studying what you actually want to do. Krishna says, don't do someone else's work, even if you can be very good at it. So there's four main drivers, according to God. One is what I want to bring to the world is beauty, support, and functionality. I want to say, I made that, I fixed that, I cleaned that, I helped that. I was there when people needed things. I made the world work. Krishna wants the world to work. I've been able to do that for others. I want to please customers and clients, but when I see that my customer or client is pleased, then I am pleased. So if one is moved by that, all the engineering careers are there. Software engineers, chemical engineers, mechanical engineers, all the fine artists, all the service industries, all the trades, all the crafts, all the performance arts. Then another way of giving is, I want to take care of people like a parent. I want to provide for the greater needs of society. I want to make sure there's ethics. I want to make sure there's morals and laws and protection. I want to make sure people have what they need. And I'm energized by crisis, not just cool in a crisis, but energized by crisis. And I want to make sure that people have the proper care under the law, or maybe I want to write the laws, or maybe I want to enforce the laws, or maybe I want to work with people that make sure they can get what they need under law. Maybe I want to work to prevent conflict in the world, to prevent laws, to be a diplomat, to be a negotiator. Careers there are like police officers, firefighters, politicians, social workers, spies, diplomats, legislators, judges, lawyers. Or if you say, what I really want to give to the world, I really want to give expansive wealth. I want to make the world prosperous. I want to make sure there's raw materials for food, for construction, for items, household items, for medicines. I want to work with the resources of nature and expand wealth. I want to make sure that people have financial security, that they have prosperity, and I want to deal with it in a way that actually values Bhumi Devi and Lakshmi Devi. I want to create some sustainable, regenerative wealth and highest prosperity in society. So for those who are moved by that, there's agriculture, farming agriculture of food, of fiber, mining of metals, mining of timber, and dealing with money, and banking, and trade, and investment. And then there are those who want to be the workers of wisdom in the world, who want to give truth and wisdom to others. Even stuff that people may not want to hear. Telling people sometimes bitter truths that's necessary for them to hear, not wanting to please customers and clients, but giving guidance and direction. And those close to the teachers, the doctors, the therapists, the counselors, the clergy, the scientists, the researchers. So these are the four main areas of dharma. And each of them is what do I want to give, and what do I want to give even if other people are doing it well. So if you see that things are broken and not functioning, you may say, okay, I guess I gotta fix this. But if somebody else was fixing it, if you say, no, I don't want to do that, then it's not your time. But if someone else is already fixing it and you still want to make things work well, that's your time. What do we want to do? What are we drawn to contribute? And when we're coaching people, our ultimate evidence procedure is what makes people come alive. Not just what they say they want to do. I want to give truth and wisdom to the world. No. I really want to generate a lot of money. No. What makes people come alive? Krishna says in Sadhguru, all the gates of the body are illumined by knowledge. When we are in touch with our actual dharma, it's so interesting when you're doing this consultation with people, and when they understand their dharma, there's this whole physiological transformation. Everything becomes lighter, both in terms of weight and luminescence. People often look younger, brighter, more beautiful. I remember doing a consultation with this one woman who, when I started talking to her, I thought, this poor lady, she's so ugly. Must be really hard to go through life being that ugly. But when she found what she wanted to do, I mean, she would become like, magazine cover beautiful. It wasn't that dramatic, but it was pretty dramatic. It was like, oh my God, she's actually like pretty. It was like, wow, that's far out. People's muscles relax, they brighten, everything, just like, you see this transformation in them. And I remember talking to my co-author and saying, it's amazing when people just think about and talk about doing their dharma, they're full of light. They're not even doing it, they're just thinking about it. But to speak of they're doing it. And she said to me, a lot of what's wrong with the world today, that people are in darkness. She said people are not doing their dharma. So one of the great injustices that we're doing to youth today is not giving people an opportunity, whether paid or volunteer, to try different types of service, to see what they find tasty, what inspires them, and to push our youth into areas of study and work that's not their dharma, because for whatever reason, it's going to be more lucrative, it's going to be a higher status, whatever it is. So I think these are two great injustices being done to our youth in society. I told you I'd like the answer. That's my job, to give people answers, even if it's answers they don't like.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mother. Can I have any more questions?
Sure. Are you sure? We're not asking that question.
then this Vishwasa that you mentioned,
Yes.
is it only to the Sakya or something? Can be to the Vatsalya as well as in Madhurya also?
The Sakya exists for the perfected devotees in the other rasas.
No, the Vishwasa.
Yes.
Is it only for Sakya? Should be also for Madhurya and Vatsalya?
So Vishwasa and Mitra as a sadhana, in Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, is for everybody. That's for everybody. Now, once the person starts Raganuga sadhana and they realize their specific relationship with Krishna, then that's going to shift. Those who are in Vatsalya bhava don't see Krishna as their maintainer and protector. They think they are Krishna's maintainer and protector. So they're going to have Mitra but not Vishwas. And those who are in Dasya bhava are going to have Vishwasa and not Mitra. But that's on a higher level. But as a sadhaka, yes, it's for everybody. But that shifts somewhat. Even at Raganuga sadhana, starts to shift somewhat. And certainly by bhava and praying, it shifts somewhat. However, having said that, all perfected devotees believe that Krishna is their well-wisher and they are Krishna's well-wisher. So on some level, that does continue to exist regardless of the person. Is that all right?
Thanks.
I think it looks like there's prasadam. Well, it looks like we have a lot more plates than we have people. So thank you very much. Anything good in this presentation is Srila Prabhupada, Srila Goswami, the Shastra. Anything bad in this presentation is my responsibility. So please take the good and the correct or the slightly bad. Prabhupada,
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Mataji ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna, thank you, Mataji. So Mataji will be giving the class. Mataji will be giving a class from tomorrow. It's a seminar for 4 days from our temple. Now it will be the balance between spirituality and the meditation. So kindly please bring your parents as well, your friends. So the class starts at 7:45. Please be present right now. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. So we would like to thank Mataji by chanting on Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.